Hello and welcome to the Daily Conspiracy Podcast. We don't take days off because reptilians don't take days off. And today we're joined by Understanding Conspiracy, Mr. Paul Stobbs himself. Thank you for coming on the podcast, mate.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
No, it's good to see you again. Like you came on the show a while ago now. Would it have been over a year ago, I think, when we were Alien Addict?
I think so. Maybe longer than that, too,
Yeah.
maybe.
Because I think you were
He was an alien addict, yeah.
Yeah, you were just at the point where you were going to release your book, I think, when we were talking to you, and you weren't sure whether it was going to be a part 1 or a part 2, and now the book's out. And how is that journey, like, finishing that off?
Oh, yeah. Well, how long's it been now? So if it wasn't this July, the year, but I think it's been a year since I published the book in July. And yeah, I decided to split the book in the end into 2. So I wrote like 20 chapters, and I already had this plan for like another 20 more on the list, and I was up to like 350 pages or something stupid like this, and I was like, I'm just gonna split the damn thing. I can't keep going. You know what I mean? Like I think this needs to be 2 books. No one's gonna read it otherwise. Otherwise, it's gonna be like this thick and just impossible. Just looking at it will make people think, yeah, no, I'm not gonna bother with that. You know. So I split it into 2 books, and I made the first volume, the Nephilim Look Like Clowns, volume 1, the history, because I think it quite succinctly kind of lays out the biblical framework for the theory. So alternative biblical history from a Christian contrarian viewpoint, the Book of Enoch, the Watchers, the creation of the Nephilim, the mixing of humans with angels, all that kind of stuff is kind of laid out and explained. But I kind of give like the case for it and all the arguments people have from every side, you know, and the justification for how they made it after the flood, how the corruption made it after the flood, you know. So the first like 10 chapters of the first book is literally a history lesson from that viewpoint. And I don't even talk about clowns in the first 10 chapters, because I feel like I just need to lay that foundation so people understand where I'm coming from before I start talking about anything at all from that point. Because I think there's a lot of people in the truther community who have heard of my work and don't really know I'm a Christian or haven't actually looked into what I say yet. And they go off on all sorts of tangents that has nothing to do with me or what I talk about, based on their own kind of like secular evolutionary worldview, you know, talking about Neanderthals and red hair and Rh negative and all this type of thing. It's like my work doesn't actually go anywhere near that stuff, because I'm dealing with something wholly unhuman here when I talk about what I'm talking about. But then after those 10 chapters, I wrote another 10 chapters where I laid out the entire history of where we get the clown costume from, showing clearly with receipts this thing is quite literally a representation of a demon and always has been since its very inception. There's no 2 ways about it. Your opinion doesn't change that. These are the facts, you know. And it's actually in minor occult theater circles, they know that. They actually know that's what it's about, you know. References have even been made in modern media about how the clown is a direct representation of the Rakshasa demons of India. I think Supernatural, a long-running series, I think in 2006 or 2002, they released an episode about a circus clown that eats people, and then they do their research and they find out it's a Rakshasa demon from India. Like, and this is years prior to me discovering this separately, you know what I mean? So people have known this, and I've kind of just brought out this occult hidden understanding, because all occult means, you know, hidden, and it's now going quite mainstream. I think people are picking up on what I've done as a result of this, and that's the first book basically. And then the first book kind of tapers off at the end, talking about the psychedelic community, the DMT jesters, and it's kind of a love letter to that community because I come from it originally, you know, and I know exactly what they're thinking and believing. So I kind of wanted to reach out to them with the gospel and explain to them, these things you talk to are not your friends. This is where they come from. I hope I've made it clear where they actually come from, historically speaking now. And what you're interacting with are not reflections of the human psyche or the shadow of humanity from the collective consciousness from a Jungian perspective or something like that, or an aspect of oneself. They are quite literally separate entities from you with their own desires, wants, needs, and a history for being there, making it very literal rather than metaphorical. And that's kind of the end of that book. Kind of, because I kind of then talk about sacred clowns and the Heyoka, and kind of mainly the North Americas, the plains, the Dakota tribes, the Lakota tribes, the Hopi tribes, and what they call sacred clowning, which is kind of like very ingrained in their culture. And the sacred clown doubles up as a shaman in many ways, and his role is actually quite noble in the civilizations. It's to keep society in check, to keep people who are like perhaps being dicks, basically. You make fun of them in these rituals and it kind of puts them back in their place. You know, that's what the clown's role is to do, to kind of remind people how not to behave. So it keeps the cohesiveness of the society going. But when you actually look into what the image that they were, with the black and white lines, the red lips, the red shoes, the Nephilim-esque features, you realize they're actually trying to represent something called a Wakinyan spirit, which is specifically a thunder god, which the Dakotas dress in the same way to channel. In the northern plains, not the southern plains, so where it's rainy in the north, they channel this entity and communicate with him in order to stop the rain. But in the south, they do it to bring the rain and also to play this sacred clown role as well. So it's a very odd thing. So I kind of round off the book with that, preparing for what I'm writing currently, which is the second installation, which is going through every single continent, all the subcultures, all the folk traditions, and examining their costumes and what they wear to channel the spirits, and showing that there's a thread that runs throughout them all, a similar aesthetic that runs throughout them all, and we would call that, from a Western perspective, clown-like. And there's a reason for that, because they're all communing with the same spirits. Because I contest that the only thing that is on the other side are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, and perhaps, though this isn't proven, but I think there's a strong case for it, humans who corrupted their own DNA just before and after the flood. And they are also stuck on Earth in spirit form, along with the Nephilim giants, which were half angel, half human hybrids. So these are just humans who mutated themselves. It's discussed in the Book of Jasher. The mixing of kinds happened, where mankind mixed themselves with animals and started doing genetic splicing, basically, and creating centaurs and wolf men, bird men, moth men, name an animal, man hybrid. That's probably where it came from, you know, during that time period. And I think they go the way of the Nephilim now, because they've corrupted themselves and removed the image of God. I think the soul gets damaged when you do that. When you affect the physical, you're actually also affecting the spiritual. And I think God made us to be a living soul. He breathed life into us, and the soul and the body are one, in a sense. And when you corrupt one, you're corrupting the other. I think those people who corrupted themselves physically and did the genetic splicing to be like Nephilim, to be strong in a world of corruption and fear and misery and monsters, you know, they took that mark, shall we call it, like a proto-mark, to corrupt themselves to become more powerful. But as a result, they lost their ability to leave the earth in death. And I think they're also stuck here as demons today, the same thing. So the Nephilim certainly looked like clowns, but all these other things didn't. And I think the only thing people talk to when they take DMT or commune with spirits are what they call ancestors, but are these specific entities, you know. And I think there's a bit of trickery afoot. I think they're lying to people about who they are and what they are for many reasons, to gain a foothold in the physical realm as much as they can. But like I said, I've laid the framework in the first book. I'm writing the second book now to kind of explain that stuff and all these other cultures and every all over the earth who do this, you know, commune with spirits and dress a certain way, basically a clown costume, and how it always links back to our Western clown costume is the same thing and its purpose is identical. We just don't know that. And then the last half of the second book, the last 10 chapters, so it's another 10 chapter situation. First 10 chapters, all the continents and the cultures. The last 10 chapters is going to be about film, media, the multicolored collective, left-wing group of people out there who are very colourful, you know, the fear of clowns, the 2016 clown sightings, the music industry using the clown costume to channel demons for fame and fortune. All the pop media stuff is going to be the back end of that book. You know, clown serial killers, they're everywhere. There's a lot to go into still yet. And like I said, I'm about a third of the way through the second book, and it just doesn't end. This never ends. I keep digging and more stuff keeps coming up, you know. But I want to kind of box it off with the second book, and I think I'm going to be done then. And that'll be one combined volumes, 1 and 2 version if you want that, or you can buy each book separately. It doesn't really matter to me. And I've just released the audiobook for volume 1 to kind of finish it off in a way, because I wasn't happy with the first edition. There was a few mistakes, and doing the audiobook and reading it out loud has definitely helped me correct those mistakes. And that's kind of boxed off now and finished, and I'm going to do the same with the second book when that's finished.
Do you narrate that, Paul?
Yeah, I did that. I did the audiobook.
Where can people find that?
It's on Audible now. I think you can get like free trials and sign up and everything. If you want to get a copy directly from me, you can buy one from me directly. It's still an Audible link, but they give me like 50 links to give away for free. I think it's to get like reviewers to get give reviews and stuff, and send it to a big channel and they'll talk about it or something. But I'm just selling them. So if you want one from me directly, it's £20 rather than giving it to Amazon. Just give it straight to me instead. If you want to, understandingconspiracy@gmail.com, or go through Amazon if you want to. Like I said, Audible. It's all there on the Amazon page, and it's available.
You see,
I'll be listening, but not tonight because I'm currently staying in a hotel, and the weird synchronicities in life. This picture has one red nose on it in this hotel. Talk about a synchronicity. And I'm doing the show from a hotel. My microphone didn't work, so I apologise to our audience from that. But I wanted to ask you, because I was terrified as a child of clowns. Terrified. Still to this day, I'm pretty much terrified. Do you think that's like an inbuilt, like something that's built into our DNA, our soul, that we should be scared of this thing? Because a lot of children are scared of clowns.
They are, and there's many facets to this, which again I'll be writing about this in the second book. So what you're about to hear is probably what you're going to get in the book, but with references to back up what I'm saying. So I'm not talking out my ass, but the fear of clowns is actually quite high up on the list of fears. It's surprisingly high up. Why? It's odd. It's so odd. It's up there with snakes and heights and things you should be scared of. You know what I mean? Like things that will kill you quite easily. For completely rational fears, you should be scared of heights and snakes. They can kill you quite easily. Spiders, it's reasonable. Venomous things. Fair enough. I get why people are scared, but clowns, it's just so odd, isn't it? But they're up there. They're in like the top 10. And children don't like clowns. Like studies have been done. Like why they're marketed towards children is beyond me, because the kids hate them. Like it's like 1 in 10 children might like the clown, and that kid's a freak. They're the outlier. They're the weirdo. They're not the norm. You know what I mean? They're not like they're the exception to the rule. Children tend to have a fear response to the image of a clown. It's like I said, they freeze. They look. Just give that glance to them like they don't know what to do next. You can see it quite often. Or the old photos of children being held by clowns. They're screaming in the arms of this thing that's got them in its grips. You know what I mean? And they're trying to pull themselves away in like the black and white photos. And I think there is that aspect that there's maybe something deeply rooted in our psychological collective DNA throughout history. It's burned into our code to fear the image of such a thing because it was a natural predator of ours. It ate us. It was bigger than us, it was more stronger than us, it ruled over us, and we were its food. So yes, prey response to a predator response is probably the route we can go down. Now, when you actually look at an image of a clown, they always tell you, and there's an article every year, they release an article literally every single year, like clockwork, just before Halloween. They're going to do it this year, guarantee. I'll post it when it comes up, and they always say, why are people scared of clowns? Scientists have figured it out. They've figured it out every single year for the past 10 years, have they? You know what I mean? Like, they always like to point this out, that it's the uncanny valley thing. So it's almost human, but not quite. And that freaks us out. We can't handle that, you know what I mean? It's something built within us to mistrust that kind of imagery. And also it's the idea that because they have a mask on, in a sense, so we can't see their facial features, we can't actually see the true expression of their real emotions. Humans are naturally inclined to distrust or feel uneasy around something like that. So there is that reason. But also, the costume of a clown is a direct depiction of predator imagery. Everything about it is predatory in nature. So nature knows this, animals know this, there's a rule. Brightly coloured things means danger. Stay away. Okay? Animals use this to defend themselves. The most colourful frogs are the most poisonous frogs. That type of stuff, you know what I mean? Like the most colourful, bright lizards are usually quite dangerous, venomous in some way, same for snakes. And that's done on purpose. Insects, poisonous, very colourful ones. It's a defence mechanism. It's there to show I am a threat. So when we see something very colourful going that way, instinctually, yes, threat, danger, colours, bright, okay, be weary, be on edge. It could be poisonous, it could be venomous. That is built into us to keep us alive more than anything. But again, it could link back to the fact that these things specifically were quite dangerous. And then you have obviously wide mouths, serpent mouths, snake features, predator features again. Slit pupils. The clown makeup often has lines going down the eyes. Only predators have slit pupils. Now, there's different species that can have this, One form of canid type dog, wolf, fox thing has it. Only one breed. Some birds have it. I think there's 2 breeds of bird that have slit pupils, and they're the ones that hunt on the surface of the water and get fish really quickly, you know. And mainly a lot of felines have them. Cats, you know, because they're hunters, they're predators. They have slit pupils too. And primarily lizards and reptiles have slit pupils. Not all of them. There's disadvantage and advantage depending on environment, but primarily when you have a big, wide, open expanse with your prey on there, having a slit pupil helps you focus and zoom in and pinpoint on your enemy and stay focused on them and keep it focused while you're hunting them down. You know, it's what predators need to hunt. Prey animals like goats have flat pupils going the other way, horizontal pupils, because they are prey. They need to see all of their surroundings. The eyes are usually on the side of the head rather than the front, which is predators tend to have their eyes on the front for that same reason. And the flat pupil gives a wider, broad view of the horizon of their surroundings, so they can spot predators before they come to them. So if a clown is sporting these slit pupils, then yeah, instantly, instinctually, we're like, predator. This is a predator. We're in danger. We're in trouble. The bright colours, we're in trouble. It's danger. So no wonder people are scared of clowns just on that alone. But I think there is something, if we were quite literally hunted and eaten by these things, which according to the biblical narrative is exactly what happened, you know, then yes, it would make sense for us to naturally have an aversion towards that visage. But nature itself would tell you you're in danger to be around such a thing as well. It matches up quite well. So that's probably why you're scared of them.
Do you think there's something about wearing the costume as well, which changes people? Because I always had a weird story about a clown. Because I used to know a guy which used to go around doing like children's parties and stuff like that. And he was like a classic clown when he did it. But I'll never forget. It was in my local pub, and it was what he was supposed to do was cancelled. So he came in the pub dressed as the clown in his costume, and he didn't just like normal people when they finish work. They can go in their work clothes into a place and still be them, but he wasn't him when he came in. He was still trying to be this character thing. I live in a small village. Do you know what I mean? So it was really fucking weird behavior, and like I put me off that guy like for the rest of his life before he died. And there was something odd about him when he got himself dressed up.
Well, play silly games, win silly prizes, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I contend, it's no joke what you wear. It actually is quite serious, and we don't know that here. We don't realise that. We don't play that game. That's superstition to us. That's silly. Africans in the middle of the forest do that kind of stuff and think that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of. We have this worldview in the West that what you wear is trivial by nature and bears no importance to anything whatsoever. It's just a bit of fun, and there is no spirit world to us. There is no connection to anything beyond what our 5 senses. So why would we have such silly views about what we wear? But every other culture all over the earth knows that what you wear is sacred, and what you dress like mirrors what's going on in the spirit realm, and you could use that to create channels to spirits. It's a method. It's a very well-known method. Drugs are another. Trance music is another one. Getting yourself into a trance and a frenzy is another method. You know what I mean? Some people use sex as that method. Some people use dreaming as that method, and meditation as a method. There's many methods to get in touch with the spirit realm and spirits. Costume is one. Okay, it's usually a bit of everything when they do these rituals as well. They incorporate it all together, to make sure it's going to work in a sense. So when they dress in these costumes in, let's say, in India, when they're doing the Theyyum ritual every year. Now, the Theyyum, Theyyum, is an old, really old, thing. People think it even predates Hinduism itself. You know what I mean? It's been around forever, this old tradition. So if you want to get a glimpse into what people have been doing for thousands of years, go check that particular tradition out. But they dressed in this very colourful, big fanged, polka dot pattern face, elaborate, colourful headdress looking thing, and they are channeling what they call their ancestors. Okay, or a god, a spirit, a primordial ancient entity of some kind. And the whole village gets involved. and they wait for this guy to be possessed by the spirit after he does a few dances, jumping through fire and spinning swords around and doing all sorts of things, usually probably high as well, and the rest of it taking drugs and do whatever he can. But once the spirit's in him, the crowd gathers and they give it stuff, food, drugs, alcohol, water, live chickens to eat the heads off of, and the person possessed does it. They do it. They rip the head off the chicken and drink its blood straight out of its body and all this type of stuff. Like they're not playing around because they know this entity needs to taste these things, feel these things, do these things. That's what it's there to do. As an offering to it, to placate it, to please it. And in return, it's a transaction. You get stuff. So knowledge, power, information. The village starts asking it questions. What do I do about this situation? How can I get rich over here? This person's my enemy over here. What can I do to stop them? And it's kind of like, and they make deals with them, and it's like, even the people being possessed in many of these cultures, it's like, okay, demon, I've let you in. I've drank the drink, I've smoked the thing, I've ate the whatever, and now you're happy and satiated. You've used my senses to feel all those things because you don't have a body anymore. You're using mine. I want something. I want to be able to be cut and not bleed. I want to be able to have the strength of 10 men. I want to be able to do things to defeat my enemies, you know what I mean? Because it's very tribal in nature, and that's why they do it. It's a transaction. But to get the spirit in them first, to have this communion, they were the thing that looks like it, to mirror it in the spirit realm. So your friend dressing like a clown, to him, that's just a bit of fun. Because we're silly here. We don't know that. We don't know it means anything. To us, it's trivial. It's silly. It's just for kids, It's a clown, whatever. But to these other cultures, no, it's serious. It's business, And I don't think ignorance of the spiritual law makes you immune to the spiritual law. If you dress like a clown often enough, you're inviting into your body demons. It's that simple. I know it sounds crazy to most people, but it's not crazy to like 90% of the world. Just to us, in our isolated little bubble here, that doesn't believe in the spiritual realm, primarily through secularism and atheism and nihilism and scientism and the rest of it, But we're wrong. We're the minority, The majority of the world knows full well what they're doing. And yeah, the features that they dress up in, red headdress, white face, chalk paint, multicolored patterns on the skin, colorful clothing, that's a clown. I just described a clown to you. But they have their own way of doing it.
This explains the Furbies. Yeah. Is it the Furbies? Furries?
No.
Yeah.
And well, look at those things that are going like crazy now for kids, isn't it? What are they called? Those strange little things with the sharp teeth.
Oh, why am I blanking the name?
What's it called?
It's from an anime, isn't it?
Labubu.
Labubu, yeah. It's supposed to represent some is it like some Celtic demon or something like that? But it's I can't remember. I've looked into it briefly. That's like a human-animal hybrid. They have like bunny ears, but they've got like the teeth of like an animal. Yeah, something like that. I don't know if that's Nephilim in nature. The wide mouth is like the only thing I can find there that's a hint. But like I said, I think some of the other demons on the other side are humans or people who corrupted their DNA and became animal-human hybrids. So Labubu kind of comes under that category for me. And yeah, that's where you lose the clown features. They become something else then. You know what I mean? I'm talking like a specific class of entity you're channeling here. The angel-human hybrids. They're the ones that look like clowns. But Labubu, that's an odd phenomenon. I mean, again, it's the same thing, though. I mean, you carry around the image of something on your body, your persons, clip it to your bag. You are opening up a channel or a gateway to that thing in the spirit realm that looks like it. So I think the people who control us, getting conspiratorial, they know this. And I think they purposely put onto us these fun little trinkets that we think are just silly things, knowing full well that, this is the perfect image of this particular class of demon in the spirit realm. And now we're getting people to open them up into their life and let them into the physical world more through these things, I think there's a war being played against us, in fact, through these methods. The clown costume has just been one method for a long time, but now it's kind of out in the open. I don't know what they're going to do next. I don't think they're going to ignore it and carry on as normal because it sounds so ridiculous. No one's going to buy it, you know what I mean? But I'm hoping I can warn enough people. It's kind of like, what you wear, it's no joke. Like, you might think it's funny, but it's actually very serious. Halloween. Samhain, Samhain, I was pronounced, a Celtic tradition, which we call Halloween today, which is a Celtic ritual, when they believe the veil between the spirit realm and the physical realm was at its thinnest. And then what do? They dress like demons, because that's when they have the highest impact to commune with them. But today we do it to scare away demons. It's called being apotropaic in nature. So it's the idea that I dress like a demon to confuse the demons in the spirit realm so they leave me alone. Now, I think that's a ridiculously stupid way of viewing the world. Everywhere else knows you dress like things to channel them. Us dressing like them to scare them away.
Doesn't make sense,
we can't,
does it?
We can't both be right. Are they channeling demons or are we scaring them away? Well, I'm going to trust the people who are literally talking like a demon, drinking the blood of chickens, who tell me they've been channeling demons, to say, yeah, dressing like the thing makes you channel it, it's not scare it away. I think that's true. I don't think your intention will change that, unfortunately. And a lot of people want to argue, you know, so, well, I didn't mean to channel the demon, I just want to entertain children. It's kind of like, you're playing with fire. You really are, you know.
Halloween's strange, isn't it? It's strange. So many so many different parts of the world, like, see it, and it's like it's different names as well. For instance, I live in the Isle of Man. Halloween's Hop Tune over here. Yeah, it's I sometimes I do worry because I think of this stuff, and again, it's another thing that seems to be solely aimed at children now. And you go,
Yeah.
why do these things that are possibly damaging, they're always just thrust, aren't they? And it's always just a bit of fun. Don't be silly. It's fine. It's all good. Just dress them up as a demon. It'll be great.
Well, yeah, it's always aimed at the kids. Always has been. And I think that it's odd in England. It's not very often I talk to English hosts, to be honest, so it's kind of nice to have this kind of conversation.
Yeah.
But
And we've all got ginger beards.
but what do you know? We must all be Nephilim ourselves, as people keep telling me. But I think there's something about the Americanization of the English island, the British Isles, has been happening a lot. And I think even things like Easter, for example, didn't used to be quite as commercialized as they are in our country now. You know, with all the eggs and the chickens and like just decorating your entire house. It's quite an Americanized introduced into the West. I think Halloween as well, the popularization of Halloween as like just as big as Christmas to us now. You know what I mean, in terms of the way it looks. Like, they're already selling Halloween stuff in the shops now. In August, August has just started. We're still in the throes of the heat of summer. You know what I mean? And they're already selling it now, putting it on the shelves, ready for it, because it's big money, it's big business. And yeah, it seems to have been heavily popularized. I feel like it's a bigger deal now than it was when I was a kid.
Yeah,
And I'm
it's
only
much
33,
bigger,
you know what I mean? It's very overhyped now, and I get the sentiment, I get it. Oh, kids love it, you know. It's that one time of the year they can just absolutely gorge on sweets and just lose the fucking mind for like 3 hours and crash and go to bed, you know what I mean? And parents are okay with it. That's fun, isn't it? Kids probably enjoy that, fair enough, you know. But it's
the one night of the year it's the one time of the year that you'll let your kids get sweets off strangers.
well, but kind of, you know, it depends. If the packaging's been opened or removed or compromised, don't take it. That's what I would say, you know. But
No.
it's always, they always hide behind the children. This is how the occult always operate, because it's kind of like, what, do you hate kids? You know what I mean? They always have that plausible kind of, what's wrong with you? You know, like at the Shriners, for example, who dress like clowns, you know, and have their own clown sect within every single shrine. They all have their own little group that dress like clowns, and they put on shows for charity and circuses to raise money for the hospitals, the Shrine hospitals, you know, which help dying and sick children. Okay. And it's kind of like, if you question their motives, it's kind of like, what, you want children to die? Like, what the perfect cover is that? What a shield is that? What kind of shield, you know? But when you look into it, it's kind of like, and someone did, and I've made a video about this recently, for the Royal Order of the Jesters, which, by the way, are all Shriners who become Royal Order of the Jesters. And it turns out, someone's been following the money. She's called is it Sandy Frost or Susan Frost? I think it's Sandy Frost, yeah. She wrote a book called Vampires of Charity. And she basically just follows the dry money, goes through tax returns. And she turns out all the money that gets raised in these circuses by the Shriners, they claim all the funds go to the hospital. Well, she looked into it, about 5% of the money goes to the hospitals. Okay? The rest of it goes towards, who knows? Right? But it seems like these jesters have a lot of money available for their extremely extravagant parties and get-togethers involving prostitution, drugs, and all sorts of things. So she thinks, and she's done the connections, to funneling that money into fueling the debauchery parties they do behind the scenes instead. and claiming it's all for charity. So they're actually committing severe tax fraud as well while they're at it. And this is what I mean. Like, it's all, they're hiding behind children, the hospitals, you know, the sick, dying children. I think Halloween is the same thing. It's fun for the kids, but you don't want the kids to have fun. What's wrong with you? Are you some kind of monster? Just let them dress up like silly things and their favorite superhero and go and eat candy. What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? It's perfect. But when you actually understand the traditional roots of that tradition, Samhain, it's wholly rooted in spirit channeling. Like, that's what it is. It's not anything else. And so it's something that's just changed now because we've modernized it and made it for kids. No, it doesn't change. You know, it's the same practice. You just don't know that. You don't know that's what it is in a way. So I would say, you know, I'm not like a zealot. I'm not like a Puritan in a way. Like, I wouldn't recommend you take part in Halloween, but I get it. You know what I mean? So if you're going to do it, be careful about what you make them wear. Dress up like Words Wally or something like that, something harmless. You know what I mean? Don't dress up like a clown. First of all, that's my first piece of advice. I wouldn't bother doing that. And if you're going to go out and knock on doors for candy, like, do so, but just keep it local, keep it safe, and don't eat anything that's been opened out of the packaging. And just try and distance yourself as much as you can from the demonic aspect of it all.
Satanic,
You know what I mean?
So,
Yeah, that's all I can really recommend. You know.
Can I ask you about, because you mentioned jesters there,
Yes.
and it just got me thinking, because a jester was always the one that was kind of by the king's side, could even make fun of the king, could get away with murder almost. Have you looked into jesters, and maybe were they imitating clown? Well, it looks like they were imitating clowns, but could it be that they took on the role so much of a clown that they almost got possessed by something and could influence higher ups like the king, for example?
Yeah, yes and no in a way. Jesters are a special kind of place in this whole theory, because jesters traditionally were just actors for hire. And yes, their job was to entertain the court, you know, and the king had a court, and they usually stayed within the grounds, you know, and the role was to be on beck and call to calm the king down, shall we say, you know, and there's different types of jesters. You have natural fools and you have trained fools, you know. Natural fools are like really deformed, ugly idiots who are just very low intelligence, who are just funny to watch be idiots, you know. It was a different time. That was actually quite a common thing then, you know. He's on the other side.
I know what you mean.
But they, yeah. So that's the natural fool, and yeah, they have their place, and they usually dress them quite differently than trained fools, intelligent fools, you know, who are actually playing a role, a part, the witty kind of jester, you know. So the natural fools were one thing, and they were literally just there to be laughed at. They weren't really anything else, you know. They weren't trying to be funny. They just are funny by nature. You know, they're natural at it, you know, because funny looking and yeah, basically, yeah, that's what they were doing. They were laughing at disabled people. That's basically what it was. But then you had this other class of jester, which dressed very specific. They designed their own clothes, but they did have more of that like kingly attire to them, with the crown, with the bells, and the scepter with the head on the end, and the bladder, and this type of thing. And their role was to kind of, like I said, placate the king. But they had a lot of power. They had a lot of sway over the king's opinions. They could decide whether or not the king's going to behead a little boy for stealing bread or let him go. You know what I mean? Depending on how he's feeling that day. The jester could change the king's mood easily and save people's lives, you know. So he had a lot more sway than perhaps somebody should have, and they were given a lot of free license to kind of be the one that can say those things. And it was a traditional role that kind of developed throughout medieval period, coming out of the 500 AD. Because the problem is, with the collapse of Rome, acting was like dirty. It was filthy. It was like being a prostitute, pretending to be something you're not. It's like you're a liar. You're a paid liar. You know, they really didn't like it then, when like kind of like the Christianity kind of took hold of Rome, and actors were kind of out of work, you know, basically, and they traveled throughout Europe, and they kind of found their place as these court jesters for kings and stuff, because it's kind of, you can't turn your nose up at paid work, you know, and who's going to argue with the king for having a funny man around? You know what I mean? Like, you can't really so kings could kind of get away with it, and it became like a hot commodity to have a jester. If you didn't have one in your court, like, are you even like powerful? Like, what are you? You know, it's that kind of attitude. That was like the bragging rights of the day. So they were all over Europe, jesters in every kingly court, and yeah, they did play that role, but they were mainly a mockery or an image of the king himself. So they're dressing like the king, not clowns. But then I think that towards the end of the medieval period, there was a change and inspiration in costume, which certainly mirrored a lot like Harlequin from the Commedia dell'arte movement. So the Commedia dell'arte movement were these out-of-work actors I mentioned earlier. Throughout the Middle Ages, they developed a band of traveling actors called the Commedia dell'arte. They all came together and they put on shows in town squares to entertain the public and got paid cash in hats, you know what I mean, and moved on to the next place to do it again. And they developed a lot of stock characters, stock zanies they were called, funny men that represented funny people in society, and they made mockeries of them, like the policeman, the soldier, the baker. There's stock characters anybody anywhere would recognize that transcends language barriers. You know what I mean? Whether you're in France or you're in Russia, you know what the rich man is. You know what I mean? Or you know what the I don't know, the shopkeeper is, and it's that type of thing, you know. So they kind of had these stock characters, and they introduced Harlequin in like the late 1400s, early 1500 period, and it kind of developed to become what it is today. This tightly guitar, diamond-wearing fancy lad about town, you know, that's prancing about. But in the early days, he was a representation of club-wielding giants all throughout Europe called the Wild Man. And I think that Wild Man costume definitely inspired the jester costume in the king's courts in that period. I think you saw kind of like a similar style, and think more like Venetian style. Do you know what I mean? With the like, see Venetian masks at carnival today and stuff like this. That kind of did start to seep into the image of a jester, and I think when that started to seep through, perhaps then the jester started to get more of a demonic influence into himself. Because prior to that, jesters actually had a really hard job. Because they have to tell the king bad news. You don't want to be the guy that tells the king bad news. Like, you can go either way. Like, they were dicing with death on a daily basis, but they had like riches for it. They were given like their own homes and all sorts of things, and you know, it was very lucrative to be a jester. Like, but at the same time, it's kind of you could die tomorrow on the whim of the king's mood. You know, it doesn't matter. And often in battle, for example, the jester would be the one that has to go to the other side, talk to the opposing king with the terms for surrender, you know. And if the king was angry, often they would shoot the messenger. And by that, I mean literally put the jester in a catapult and fire him back at the other side. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they would do. That happened, you know. These court jesters died horrible, terrifying deaths at the hands of other kings because they didn't like the news they told them. So they had it rough, you know. So I'm not like saying these people were evil inherently. Some of them hilarious. Some of the stories some of these jesters do are hilarious. One jester, for example, was banned from England because he went too far with his jokes towards the king. And anyway, he comes back in. And he's like, I told you not to set foot on English soil ever again. What are you doing here? He says, oh, but I'm not on English soil. And he kind of took his shoe off and he poured out French soil from the inside of his shoes. You know what I mean? So he had these quick and witty jokes. And it was so funny he got back in. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's odd. Like, one jester faked his own death to get rid of a debt he owed the king. Like, and the king was like, if only I had forgiven you of your debts, so this type of thing. I forgive you for everything you've done for me at his funeral. And this king gives this public announcement, mourning over the death of his jester. And then the jester leaps up and says, I'll take the royal pardon, thank you. And there we go. Everyone heard it, you know. So it's kind of like things like that did happen in history. These people were wild and crazy, and they kind of like, they lived a horrible, dangerous life. But in terms of like Nephilim influence, I think it only seeped in very later in terms of costume design with the Wildman influence from Harlequin. But other than that, I wouldn't say there's much connection there. Now, there's something to be said for comedians and witty, funny men having the ear of the most powerful leaders. I think that in itself is something we should take seriously, as the idea of like who really runs the world, you know, who really sways public opinion. And today, comedy and laughter is used as a powerful tool in propaganda to sway public opinion and keep people on track within the propaganda world that they've created for us. And media knows comedy is a powerful tool for sway. So there is that to be said as well, you know.
The most powerful man in media right now is a jester. You know, you've got Joe Rogan there.
Well, I just talked about that with Izzy Griffin. You know that guy. he's a musician, I think. I'm not sure. I've talked with him before, but I just did a talk about Joe Rogan with him on his podcast, and he thinks that he has this idea that Joe Rogan's like the head of the jesters in a sense. He's like the court jesters, and he's like the head jester, and he has this troupe of comedy actors that are kind of controlling what is and isn't funny. And he is the most listened to man in the world, like you said, and I don't think personally, I never considered Joe Rogan that much of a comedian. Personally, I didn't think it was that funny, and I don't know him for his comedy. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's fair. I think he's the only reason. Like I think some of Joe Rogan's stand-up stuff is pretty funny. But that being said, he wouldn't be selling arenas out if he wasn't Joe Rogan from the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right. His name definitely carries more weight, I think, just because than his actions, shall we say?
Yeah,
and I think he's a bit of a flip-flopper personally. I think he disagrees with most of the guests he has on as well. And I don't know. I've never been a fan. Like, I don't hate the guy. I don't know him, but I've never been one to listen to his podcast that often. But I have seen the odd one when he had like Alex Jones on, for example, or just because everyone was watching it, and it's like, what's going on now, But I've heard about, he does have this like comedy sphere around him, in a way. And but how much influence does he have on like culture at large? Probably more than he should have.
I mean,
but
you could argue he swung an American election.
I've heard that. I've heard that argument in the comment section for the talk I had. The people who love him, and people say, oh, well, he's doing his best. If it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have conspiracy and all this type of thing. And I think people give him a lot more credit than he's due as well. I think there's a lot of fanboying going on. I think it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I don't know. I'm personally somebody who doesn't like to assume malevolence. I assume ignorance before malevolence. And I don't think people, I don't want to say he's a shill. I don't know that. Do you know what I mean? He could just be a guy doing his thing, trying his best like everybody else, and that's fine, So all the best to him, and we'll see where it goes. But I don't think he brings much to the table personally in terms of trutherism myself. But
I don't think there's a lot of controlled people, to be perfectly honest with it. I think there's people that have maybe people in their ear or stuff that gets put to them, but I don't think there's an awful lot of people which are controlled and they know they're controlled, because the way I look at it is, I don't think people understand how difficult it is to lie for an hour, let alone 2 hours, let alone 3 hours, let alone X amount of hours over the course of a month. It's far easier just to get people to help maybe push people in those positions that actually believe what they're doing in those positions than it is to try and insert fucking bad actors into the place.
I think that too. I think there's a lot of useful idiots out there, patsies you would call them, and they believe wholeheartedly what they're preaching, and they're good guys in their own mind, and the thing they're selling and what they're saying is, this is the truth. I believe it's the truth. I want to help people know the truth, and they're sincere in what they do, which is why they're so successful, because the sincerity sells in a way. And yeah, I think a lot of people do get pushed and moved into positions because someone behind the board that they have no idea exists is putting them there, and influencing them to get to those positions. I think, I agree. When it comes to like shillery in the world of conspiracy, it's not it's not what people think it is. I think it's subtle influence being exhumed against the culture at large, rather than, like I said, nefarious actors out there intentionally lying on a daily basis, scrubbing their hands together, saying, how can I deceive the nation today? I really don't think that's what they're doing, and it wouldn't work. We'd see through that. Insincerity screams through people when they're lying. You can tell when somebody's lying. Your spidey senses go off, as I've heard someone use against me recently, apparently. And it's kind of like this when somebody's not legit. You can just feel it. You just kind of know, And I think there's I don't want to name names, but I think I've met a few where you're sus as hell. You know what I mean? You are sus. Like I've been there, but you don't want to cast a spell. You don't know, and this is the problem. You can't know, can you? So why accuse when you just don't know? We'll go ahead. Sorry.
I listened to the Joe Rogan interview with Stephen Greer, which is from years ago. It's funny you mentioned Joe Rogan, because on the way to work this morning, so I had a 3-hour drive, I listened to that, and you could tell all the way through this podcast that Joe Rogan just didn't believe a word Stephen Greer was saying through that podcast. So yeah, I know you. And these are players that have been around for a long time, talking about this paranormal subject. But what I did want to ask you,
Go.
through your research, Paul, what is the most recent event when it comes to the Nephilim in our history? From like now to because these things have disappeared. They've all died now, and they're just whatever remains of them is in the a different dimension or whatever. But what's the most recent? Have you found anything in history that depicts anything?
Well, okay, well, first we have cryptid sightings. They're still going strong. There's a whole community
Yeah.
get dedicated to it. I'm sure your podcast has interviewed a few cryptid hunters or two out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm sure you've met them. They're out there, and they all have these accounts and tales that they're like, they've seen some things, man, and they get these reports from people who are witnessing odd-looking creatures all over the place that just defy anything logic that we can understand. And I think as far as like true Nephilim. We'll get to that in a minute. That's one thing. I think the cryptid phenomena, which is still happening and strong today to this day, and is inspiring many media movies about them. Folkloric renditions through media of real phenomena is cryptids, and I think they go back to humans who corrupted themselves, okay, or animals that were slapped together that shouldn't have been slapped together in DNA during this time of genetic engineering, and we have these chimera hybrids all over the place and human animal hybrids like Mothman, for example, a very famous one in Virginia, a human animal crossover of some kind. They're all over the place. They are everywhere. And I think those are the most modern, like Nephilim-esque encounters that are still going on. When it comes to like giants, I think the giant of Kandahar incident was quite a common one in Afghanistan. Have you heard of this one? And this, I think like
Did somebody
with the
sacrifice a
Marines.
goat to it? People were taking goats to it, I think.
Possibly. I don't think
local.
the military intended to come across it though. I think they were just thought that was superstition or something. But we don't really know what they're doing in the Middle East, to be honest. According to the Hillary files, they found the tomb of Gilgamesh. You know what I mean? And they're very specific on that thing. And they believe he was a Nephilim. Trying to find eternal life because he knew what would happen to him in death as well. It was a bad idea. It's that type of thing. But then people say, was that Nimrod? And then it comes to a whole: did Nimrod Nephilimify himself, or did he just want to be like the Nephilim because he admired them in some way? I think there's a lot to be said that Nimrod may have brought the Nephilim technology back after the flood, may have revived Nephilim after the flood and incorporated them back into his fold and his kingdoms. I don't know. We know they made them after the flood. They made it. And Canaan was flooded with giants after the flood, and Israel had to go through and reclaim the lands and slaughter all the giants after wandering in the desert for 40 years, after failing to do it when God told them to originally, Like, we know giants made it afterwards. Did any survive that original culling? Well, there's a tale from the north regions of the earth in the icy plains of Inuit culture, and they have what's called... I think it's from the Dorset culture, but they have these things called the Tunits, Tuniit. And the Tunit culture or the Dorset culture are gone now, extinct, disappeared, wiped off the map. But they were described as incredibly tall, powerful, giant men who could sling a seal over their shoulder and run incredibly fast like a caribou, And they dwelled in the north, and wherever they encountered humans, they fled. They didn't stick around to fight. Because I think... my theory is these are the remnants of the giants that fled from Canaan, who went as far north as possible to avoid being slaughtered, because they were hearing reports of all their brothers and sisters getting annihilated by tiny humans, which was like, what the hell? How is this possible? Because God gave them the right to do that and claim their lands back. I think some of them fled. And I think we have pockets of Nephilim all over the earth, like some of these stories suggest, where they try to hold out and stop the culling, stop being wiped off the earth, And I think that's why they fled from humans when they saw them, even though they could, in theory, annihilate them. I think the God-given edict to humanity to wipe them off the face of the earth still stands. And I think they don't want to risk touching a human or getting close to a human because they'll probably win. And I think that they know that, because the fate is sealed by God in a sense. But they got wiped out through wars with the Inuits, and they were destroyed and gone. But these are giants, It's claimed that origins are that every year the ice sheet from the north would fill into the northern plains, and then ice giants would come across and mate with the human women to create the Tunics. Okay, so it's kind of like a Nephilim creation story. The ice giants from the north could be angels from the sky. Do you get what I mean? It's the same thing, and mixing with human women to create giants, which were the Nephilim. So they have their own Nephilim-esque creation stories. That's quite a relatively modern one, you know. We have stories which come through, let's say, we don't know how old these oral traditions are, but there was the Duwamish people, the Duwamish tribes of North America. They have a story of what's called the Nung Nungs, or the Noseless Ones, or something like this. And they had magic creams that could make them invisible, and they were tall and terrifying, you know, and cannibals. And they kept pestering this tribe, the Duwamish people, and they kept stealing their women. And some women returned, some didn't, you know. And the women that did return had their DNA in them, so they got raped, basically. You know, that's a nice way of putting it. So they were mating with human women, trying their best to keep themselves going, and they were like playing jokes on this tribe, which is again an odd thing when you think about it. They were like stealing their clothes off washing lines, or picking up their huts and putting them in trees so the humans couldn't get to them and stuff like this. You know, just messing with them, and the humans stood up to them, and as a result, these giants killed 12 of the tribe's young men. And it's kind of like, how dare you speak to us like that, you pathetic human. As a result, for this insolence, we're going to murder 12 of your people, you know. So the tribe was just destroyed after this event, and they never talked about it again. And so that's a modern oral tradition of, maybe they're still there. Maybe these tribes still exist. We don't really know.
It reminds me of, we had somebody on, we had a guy called Doug that went out to, was it Peru, Lee? And he investigated the face peelers.
The face peelers. Do you remember the thing that was going on with the...
he went with Tony Albarino. Was it Tony Albarino? Yeah. Timothy Albarino, sorry.
I've heard of this face peeler thing. You have to remind me. This was like a year or two ago. I think I heard about this.
Yeah, there was a village in Peru, up the Amazon, and they were reported that they were being attacked on a nightly basis by these creatures, with humanoid creatures on black hoverboards, for want of better words.
They were hovering.
Their armor was very much like the Green Goblins from Spider-Man, and they were coming in, and there was a girl which had like lacerations on her neck, and Timothy Albarino, a couple of other people, and our friend Doug went down there, and like Doug's ex-military, he went down there to they took weapons, they took some other stuff, they took some night vision stuff, and trained them like how to like cover the perimeter of their village and stuff like that. But like, he's convinced that that what they were seeing, that they were interacting with something like real. And the wild thing about it was, now bearing in mind, these things were coming from the sky. They had been shot by the rifles that they had, and they would just get up and keep going. And they were trying to grab young girls at the time as well. But the craziest thing to me was they got in touch with like the Peruvian government to try to help them. It was like, we're under siege, essentially. They didn't do anything, and the official news report to write it off was, it's illegal miners with jetpacks. that was the government's official line, that it was illegal miners with jetpacks. Bearing in mind that even if we'll entertain the fact that this was like, I mean, and when we say illegal miners, we're talking about like essentially like petty violent criminals here. Doug did explain to us the level of sophistication that goes on with these like illegal miners, and however sophisticated you think it is, like it's minus 1,000 of what you're thinking it is. They don't make very much money doing what they're doing, so they're not dropping what at the time. I think I looked online, and the cheapest like consumer jetpack I could find was like 25, 30 grand. And you see that they're incredibly hard to maneuver. They don't fly for very long. We see whenever there's demos of them, they're always like racetracks and stuff like that, aren't they? Where there's like big wide open spaces. These things were negotiating a fucking jungle.
Yeah,
it was really weird.
More of a Silver Surfer type situation, to be honest. So something just ethereally out of this, impossible by human standards, is what we're seeing here, isn't it? And again, those encounters are so common today that you can't help but. No, we, at least in the conspiracy world, people are encountering crazy monsters all the time. So something's still here, clearly. Are the OG angel human hybrids around, the Nephilim? I don't know. I think they were doomed to be killed before the flood, and I think that was fulfilled. And then humans took it upon themselves after the Nephilim were gone to corrupt themselves. I think that's perhaps how some of the corruption got to the next realm, the post-flood world. So I don't know. I don't actually know if any real old school Nephilim are still about, but there's something to be said for the children of the Nephilim. So these aren't like half angel, half human. They're like a quarter angel, 3/4 human. So a Nephilim had sex with a human woman and created their hybrid children, and then that grandchild of the original Nephilim had sex with a woman and had a child. So the angel aspect is getting watered down with each generation. Do you know what I mean? But are they Nephilim? Probably, yeah. They have Nephilim blood, shall we say? They are. What would you call it? Ancestors of the Nephilim. They are genetically connected to the Nephilim, and I think they're described as the Eliud, the Elio. A film just came out called Elio, did it not? By Pixar. Funnily enough, I thought it was an interesting choice of name. And the Eliud and the Nephil. So not Nephilim, just take the IM off the end of the Nephil. And these are described as like the generational children, grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren of the Nephilim. And I think some of them are still knocking about. I think this is where we get people who believe that they're actually like genetically connected to the Nephilim with the angel blood in them, with the divine right to rule, these 13 power blood families of the Illuminati, shall we say, that type of thing. I think they think they're connected to them. But I think it's actually Bigfoot that's we're looking at here. Because I think with each passing generation, the clown features disappeared and the human features mixed in more. And I think they got hairier. I think they did, especially in the northern climates where you adapt to your environment. I think they got hairier and hairier, and like in like the mountains, you get the Yetis, for example, with lots of hair, and they get more like ape-like and weird, but still big, still humanoid, still bulky. And the only reason I would say Bigfoot probably is more closest thing we have to Nephilim today is because of the supernatural divine abilities that's always documented. They're not just like big apes. They can also throw their voices, go through portals, manifest and disappear into reality instantaneously. They can mind control people. They can communicate through the mind. They have magical properties to them, like extra sensory abilities that are just beyond humanity, And I think the only way they would have such a thing is if they have something angelic in them. So they have a lineage going back to the OG Nephilim in some way. So could the Bigfoot be the Eliud or the Nephil that was described? And where people find Bigfoot, what you're really encountering is the remnants of Nephilim, basically, or at least the remnant descendants of Nephilim.
That might explain the missing. It might explain the missing 411.
Maybe it's just a working theory. I don't know. Just based on my research, that seems to be something we could equate it to. Now, are they evil necessarily? I don't know. I have people telling me they're completely evil. The most evil creatures, in fact. But I have other people telling me, no, maybe not so. They're just misunderstood, I don't know. I've never met one myself. But what I can tell you is the wild man is a tradition all over the earth, everywhere. But specifically in Europe. In Europe, we call it the wild man. You call it Bigfoot there in America. They call it Bigfoot over there in America. They call it... Well, they have their own names for it. Everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go. You know what I mean? Like I said, the Yeti's another good example in the Alps and this type of stuff in the Himalayas. So it's kind of they're all over the place. They all have a different name, but I think they get less hairy the more closest to the equator they are, and then they just look like Nephilim. They look like clowns. They look weird. Like man-eating monsters with big jaws and this sort of stuff. But I think the further north and colder you get, the hairier they get, and they look more like what we call Bigfoots. So I think that's why we have this odd variation. If you go to India, they've got loads of representations like Rakshasas. And if you just cover that thing in hair, you've got a Bigfoot. You know what I mean? But they're naked. They look even scarier naked because they have these massive claws and giant
Everything
bulging
does.
eyes and massive like grinning teeth. You know what I mean? And they look insane and they're man-eating giants. You know. But I imagine if you just cover that in long hair, you would think it was just Chewbacca. You know what I mean? It's just what it is. Like and I think that's what we're dealing with in a sense. Like just different variations based on geographical location. So they give them different names, and people have separated them from one another as though they're not the same thing. But I think they are. I think they're all connected in a way. And I think the Nephilim is the closest thing we've got today. Is the Bigfoot phenomena. That's kind of my conclusion on your original question there.
Paul, have you looked into like the dinosaurs when it comes to like some of the bones and things like? Because I've heard conspiracies where people are saying that dinosaur bones and I'm well aware that what we see in a museum, me and Lee have talked about this many a times, that, you know, when we look in a museum, we are pretty much seeing a replica of what they think a dinosaur looks like. And, you know, half the times it's not even real bones, it's just plaster. Do you think some of those bones that they found back in the day could have been Nephilim bones?
I think it's a cover up for dragons more than anything.
That's what I think.
I think also a lot of bollocks has been created as well based on the bones they found in the ground. I think a lot of it was it's just pure. They're pulling our leg on a mass scale. They're finding giants' bones basically and making monsters out of them. But I think there are big terrible lizards. I think there were dragons around, you know. And I think we have all the medieval period are contested that dragons existed and they were fighting them quite regularly. In fact, you know what I mean? They're depicted all over the place. And I think to cover that up, they now say it was dinosaurs millions of years ago, you know. But it doesn't actually take that long to petrify bone into stone. It doesn't actually take that long, just the right conditions.
I think what I'm getting at there is, where do you think the Nephilim bones are?
Oh, I think they've been exhumed. I think they've been, wherever they're found, they've been taken by, what's it called? I'm blanking here. The Institute in America, the Smithsonian. All throughout the 1800s, they were digging up giants' bones all over the place. There's a book about this. I can't remember the name now. I did reference it in my book, and I've read it, but it was fantastic. And they basically just laid out all the stories from like the 1800s to the modern day, newspaper clippings, everything they could find, where they were announcing that they found giants. They were digging giants up in these places, usually in burial mounds and serpent mounds and in caves and in random places, you know. And it's kind of like, and the people who were announcing that we found like an 11-foot skeleton or a 16-foot skeleton or a sometimes 9, sometimes as big as 30, you know. It's kind of like they're always like really well-known and respected archaeologists of that day. They're not like nobody saying this. People who wouldn't stake their entire reputation on a claim, you know what I mean? Those type of people, like, they weren't just quacks, like, who weren't like serious or didn't have the credentials to make such a claim. Being interviewed by the reporter, you know what I mean? It's kind of like the local archaeologist professor from so and so university has this to say, you know, and they're in these articles and they're saying, yeah, we found these giants, we're really excited, we're intrigued, we got the Smithsonian, we contacted them, we can't wait to study these things, and then you never hear it ever again. And the bones disappear and they're gone. They've been destroyed, you know. And you look into the politics of the Smithsonian, you find there was a takeover around the same period from this. I think it was like a German. I can't remember, but he was a staunch secularist evolutionary theory believer. You know what I mean? And he was kind of he did not allow anything that went against that narrative to be associated with scientific endeavor or discovery, you know. So you find there was a lot of stuff destroyed in the 1800s, a lot of bones. Anything that we did find is gone. I don't know where it is, you know. One story is that in Lovelock Cave, you find the Paiute Indians destroyed a red-haired, white-skinned tribe of giants who were cannibals in a cave next to a river called Lovelock, and they blocked up the cave and set fire to the entrance and smoked them all out. But when they went in there, the bodies were gone, and they think they must have gone deeper into the cave, but they were probably dead. They never saw them ever again, you know. And this was only after pleading with them to stop eating our people. They tried not to genocide them, but they wouldn't listen. They wouldn't change their ways. You know what I mean? They kept just being man-eating monsters. So they tried to live peaceably with them, but they just couldn't. So they resorted to war, you know. But anyway, it turns out like 100, 200 years later or something like this, guano excavators, so digging up bat shit basically, because it's of value in the region. They, under layers and layers of it, they found duck decoys, skeletons, 7-foot skeletons, 8-foot skeletons, all sorts of things. You know what I mean? That back up this oral tradition that giants were killed in this cave, you know, because of this war. And that wasn't that long ago. Again, it was in the 1800s. I think it was in like 1911 actually, or something like that, or 1907. And anyway, those bones apparently were taken by the local Freemason lodge and boiled and used in a ritual or something like that. Like, so they're gone. They're all gone. But the bones were there. They were found. You know, they were found. And you can find hundreds of articles announcing them being found. And now it's at a time where pretty much anything that's been found has been found or is buried, and if we did find something now, they're not going to tell you about it, you know. And all those organizations who do that kind of work are all orchestrated and controlled now, so you would never hear about it or the operation to begin with, you know. So we're living in a different time, and but we have echoes of residue evidence from these newspaper clippings that they found all the bones. Now, dinosaurs, I think, are a convenient. They came around the same time as a convenient way to explain away some of the big bones they couldn't quite get rid of. And you should see some of the early dinosaur depictions. They're ridiculous. Yeah. They slap these bones together into some crazy shape and say, look at this monster, you know what I mean? But it's kind of like that bone does not connect to that bone in any way. You don't know what you're on about, you know? So they look ridiculous, some of the early dinosaur skeletons. And it's certainly evolved and adapted into this grand narrative we have today with images, and we have the Triceratops, the Stegosaurus, the T-Rex, the Triassic, the Jurassic, you know, we've got the pterosaurs, and it's like we have all this they came from the water, they were on land, you know, and they developed and they turned into what they are today. And now suddenly they're no longer lizards, they're now giant chicken lizards with feathers instead, or something like that. They're now actually birds, not lizards, you know. It's always changing the narrative. And I always remember this funny I saw this funny meme, and it showed a medieval dragon, and it's covered in like, it's got wings, you know what I mean, and it's got this like feathers everywhere, colourful feathers, and it's got this big, like lizard head with like a tongue sticking out, and it says like medieval bullshit next to it. And then as you go down for the progression of dinosaurs, it's like first it's this really crudely drawn like lizard, and it turns, and this is like the real scientific out of the textbook drawings of dinosaurs, you know, and it evolves into like a velociraptor shape. And then now they say it looks exactly how the medieval people used to say they look like. You know what I mean? It's the same shape now. Like, they didn't have tiny little things at the front. Those were wings. Going backwards, it's a different thing now. So we've gone full circle, and now what the people in the medieval period were claiming to be fighting and riding and doing all sorts of crazy things with, we now say existed millions of years ago instead. So I think dinosaurs were dragons, a lot more modern. I think dinosaurs is a cover story for their existence because it doesn't fit into the main narrative that we've been given. But also I think a lot of it is bullshit as well to cover up for a lot of the giant bones that were exhumed around the same period. So that's my take on dinosaurs.
So because I've noticed this with some of the stuff you've been doing, because I know you do some streams now and again, don't you? He's been on our show before. In fact, I think he's coming back next month, which is JT Follows JC.
Yeah,
and,
Joe.
Yeah. And I've noticed some of the stuff you've been doing lately has been delving into like Tartaria and stuff like that. How is that woven in from what you were doing to get to that point? Are they connected, or is it just something that you've come into along the way?
Well, my work on my channel is about conspiracy.
Yeah,
primarily. I'm trying to understand the conspiracy. You know, that's my holistic goal. My logo is a symbol of the conspiracy. It represents everything you need to know to understand the conspiracy. That's why we've got that star there. People think I'm repping it like I'm a part of it or something like that. But no, it's like I have another channel called Understanding Creativity. So I've used a paintbrush and a pencil. You know, it's the same thing. Cool. Like I want to understand conspiracies, so let's get the logo that represents the conspiracy and let's break it down. You know, so fundamentally, that ethos and that philosophy has always been my work. And the Nephilim look like clowns is just something I discovered and something I've worked on a project. It's a side project. It's a passion project. You know, it's my baby, and yeah, predominantly known for that. But if you go to my channel, I talk about everything. All topics in conspiracy, because then that's just a piece, that's a tiny puzzle piece I've contributed to the community at large, you know. And what I do is I watch the movements going on online. I try to and there's many factions in the truth of culture. You got the New Agers, the Christians, the Gnostics, the secular types, the more political types. You got the left wing, you got the right wing. You know, you got the whistleblowers. You got so many. You got the UFO community over there. You know what I mean? You've got the more of the psychological, narcissistic red pill communities who are doing into psychology of evil and all this. There's many different groups in the conspiracy world, and mine predominantly I've settled in the Christian camp, because I think that's what the truth is, you know. And within the Christian camp, we had an issue arise where this Tartarian research was coming out, and we didn't have an answer. Okay, so there was a civilization not that long ago, which we don't talk about anymore, that created a super advanced civilization and world, you know, that, and this crazy technology with Antiquitech that's far beyond what we use today, and all these machines have been destroyed and dismantled, and we're living in like the squatting in the squalid remains of what's left from that civilization, while being told we're the most advanced we've ever been, you know. And it's kind of, how do we explain that? That doesn't fit into the biblical narrative whatsoever. Who were these people? Who were the Tartarians that built all this stuff, you know? And you look into the narrative of the Tartarian researchers, and they fall short on a lot of things, you know. And they say like Tartary covered the whole earth, you know, when Tartary just means more land. And that's what people put on maps when they didn't really know what was over there. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, you have to wonder, like, well, they make giant leaps to try and justify this earth-wide civilization with a shared infrastructure and architecture, you know, which we would call Greco-Roman today, something like that. Now, biblically speaking, we had a worldwide beast system that covered the whole earth called Rome, okay? And they conquered everything, and Christ destroyed it. And Rome collapsed not long after Christendom took over, you know, and that was prophecy fulfilled in a sense. But then our official narrative is kind of like a slow burn. Christianity twisted into something evil. It became like a dark age period. And it's kind of, the Tartarians know the official narrative and the official history is a lie. But we Christians, for some reason, believe the official narrative of our history. Like, why would we do that necessarily? Because it doesn't actually conform very well with what was going on in the Bible and what Christ said. Because Christ said that all these things are going to happen soon in your lifetime. Clear as day. People can argue with me, and did argue with me for quite a while about this. You know, we have a whole body of work on this, but you know, people don't want to accept that Christ was talking to people right in front of him, and he told them, "You will see me return." Okay. So when you factor that in and then read Revelation 20, I think it's verses 11 through 15, it makes it clear that when Christ did return, or does return, he establishes 1,000-year rule on earth, where he rules with an iron rod. So it's a war-like rulership, it's dictatorship. Not everyone's on board, it's not perfect, it's not all sunshine and lollipops, you know, it's a rule with an iron rod, I am the king, you bow down type of situation, you know. And he will resurrect his saints who were beheaded to rule as kings and priests with him for that 1,000 years on earth, right? Do we have any 1,000-year period in history where Christendom completely ruled over the earth? Well, we have the Dark Ages, as we call them. And it turns out the most beautiful architecture was created during that period in time. So now we have a biblical explanation for Tartaria. We have an answer now that we can give. So I explored that answer, you know, and I made hundreds of videos on my channel, hours of work and research, teaming up with everybody else who kind of was talking about this idea everywhere. And we created a huge movement and a solid community online, which is still going strong today, around this idea that Christ kept his word. He really did return when he said he was going to return, and he established his kingdom on earth for 1,000 years. It's been completely covered up, and now we're living in a time, which is explained again in Revelation 20, chapter 15, 16. We're living in the little season of Satan, or as I like to call it, the last season of Satan, because we're not giving him power here, you know. All credit to Wendy, my moderator, came up with that phraseology. It's a great way to view it, because we're not giving glory to Satan when we say this, that we're living in the little season of Satan. We don't want, Jesus is in control, he won, it's done, it's over, you know. But it does say, once 1,000 years has ended, Satan's let loose from his prison and reigns for a little while. Okay? And he'll gather an army to make war with the camp of saints. And we don't know where that is. You don't know what that is exactly. But it's the saints who were resurrected with Christ for that 1,000 years. They've camped somewhere on earth. And we're going to make war with it at some point. So I fleshed out the possibilities. It brings the UFO phenomenon into this. The mothership suddenly turns up, or is in the north or somewhere, or an island, a mysterious place suddenly appears, like Wakanda in the middle of the ocean, you know? And it's kind of like, what is this alien threat? Let's go and attack it, you know? Well, that's the devil convincing the whole earth to go and attack the camp of saints, isn't it? And I think a lot of the narratives we've been spun throughout the conspiracy culture kind of does weave very well with this little season theory, this Satan's last season theory, that we're living in this time now, after all of Revelation and prophecy was fulfilled, and we're at the very end of the script, the very, very end of the script. Because most Christians today who are in the end times, they're not there. They're in like they're still waiting for Jesus to return after 2,000 years, and they're still waiting for him to establish that 1,000-year kingdom. Do you know what I mean? But we're saying that's all happened.
Done.
We're done. We're now in the final stage where Satan's let loose. He's not runs the earth, but he has free reign to gather his army. Okay, now Christians can still live in this time, still believe in Christ in this time, still be saved in this time for the final great white throne judgment at the end of all of this, which is the only thing that counts, by the way. Okay, that's where your blessed hope should be. Am I going to make it to the new heaven and earth? Am I saved? You know, when God judges everything at the end of this season, am I in the book of life? Am I covered? That's what being saved is. A lot of Christians think we're taking away their blessed hope by saying Christ has already returned. It's kind of like, well, your blessed hope shouldn't be in getting to rule with Christ for 1,000 years on earth as a king. It should be in, do you make it to the new heaven and earth? You know, so it's kind of, the priorities are a bit mixed up. I don't think they fully know what they believe. I don't think they know about this thing I'm talking about right now. I don't think they've been taught any of this. I think if we were living in that time, it would be covered up, you know, and I feel like that community is strong now, and I did play a big part in making it happen. Inadvertently, I just wanted to discuss interesting ideas because that's what my channel does. I cover all these topics, you know, because they're making waves in a way, and I kind of ended up inadvertently leading that wave because people liked listening to me. And it got to a point for me personally where it was actually getting a little bit too intense, and my family and me were getting a bit worried for my own safety, to be honest, because when you start talking about these grand ideas in Christendom, a lot of people take it extremely personally and get offended in many ways, and it becomes a big issue and it puts a big target on my back. And I did get a lot of attack, a lot of hate, a lot of disturbing stuff happening, you know. And not only that, unfortunately, it seemed. And look, I'm not putting down my brothers and sisters. I'm still a believer. My work is out there. I stand by it, you know. But the movement itself got weird. And it started to turn into, and I hate to say this because it's what our enemies used against us, a cult. It got weird. People were getting very zealous about it. Too zealous for my taste. And very vitriolic towards those who don't believe them. You know, and very, you are not a real Christian if you don't believe the words of Christ. That type of attitude, you know what I mean? And it was turning Christians against Christians in that respect. And look, and people say, well, you know, Christ came to bring a sword. I'm righteous and justified in saying the truth, you know, and it was getting like this, and a lot of debates and attacks were starting to happen from all angles. And I personally felt like it was getting ugly and weird, and I don't want to be a figurehead of such a movement.
Yeah,
I never wanted to be the figurehead of such a movement, you know what I mean? And so I've detached from it. I don't make videos about that anymore. I did it for a year, you know, and I realized at the end of it all, it's kind of, well, I know that now. What more can I say? I've integrated it into my knowledge, my bank, my understanding of the conspiracy and where it fits in. It's better to know than not to know that type of stuff. I can now reinterpret global world events, you know what I mean, through that new lens and not possibly caught off guard by it. And I think that's what I wanted to do with it. That's what I wanted other people to do with the idea and the concept and the research and the theory and you know, but a lot of people have made a whole new religion out of it now, it seems, and it's become a whole thing of its own. And other people wanted the movement as well and were starting to attack me as a shill, trying to control things, and were calling me all sorts of things because they wanted it. They wanted to be the ones that led it, you know what I mean? And I was like, have it. You want it, have the damn thing. because it's getting way too weird for me personally, you know. And so that was that, you know. But like I said, the research is good, it's solid, and it's not just me that did any of it. Like, I showcase a lot of other people's great work, and there's a lot to be said for the theory, but the movement itself is definitely getting a little bit, it's coming apart at the seams as far as I'm concerned. The writing was on the wall when I left. I think it's getting
really interesting
co-opted
stuff.
you know.
Like,
Go ahead.
That was the first, because I'm one of these people. I spent most. I'd say I wouldn't say I've ever been an atheist. I'd say I was, like agnostic, like at best, and I wouldn't like I believe in Christ and God now, but it was less because like I found God, more because I could see Satan everywhere.
Yeah.
That's like, and it became ever more apparent to me. But I'd never heard of the whole this like Satan's little season thing. The idea that the 1,000 years is already right, until I saw people like yourself and JT like talk about it, and I found it like really fucking interesting. I know what you mean when you say like look at the way the community became very vitriolic about it, and like people can take this however they want, but I almost believe that identity politics has been almost magic. It's almost a spell on people, because it seeped into from if you want to blame it on just a social level, which I rarely believe stuff like this is just like an instance, like once one trigger happens. I think that sort of social dynamic that becomes so prevalent in stuff has to be injected by something. I don't think things like this happen like naturally, but identity politics has seeped itself into every aspect of life, and conspiracy theory obviously nonetheless of that. So when you do get something like this that people can attach themselves to, they become so fucking ruthless about it, because just if you talk about something, you can vary from the path slightly, and then it's not you're not just questioning an idea, you're offending them personally, because they're now wearing this idea as their identity. It's become more important than the nuts and bolts that make them. So I can see why.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have nothing to gain from going against this movement monetarily wise either. Like, I'm not even going against them. I want them to know that. Like, I believe it. I'm all for it. I just don't want to be seen as a figurehead or a leader in that thing anymore, because I don't like what it's become. I don't want to be a leader of such a thing, and I never was supposed to be. You know, like I said, I want to understand the whole conspiracy. It's just one part, and they would say it's the only most important part that you should be talking about. Is kind of the attitude I get. I unsubscribed from Paul when he stopped talking about it and started talking about worldly things. It's kind of like, hang on. You think getting people to where you are, understanding that little season thing, just happens overnight? Do you not think these things we discuss here are important? That people need to stepping stone get there. You know, it happens. Like they forget, but they didn't get to where they got instantly overnight within a week because they just learned about Jesus and then the little season theory. They got there because they've been studying conspiracy for years. Okay, and we can't just stop all of a sudden that work because we think we've figured it all out. We think we've figured it all out plenty of times, and we're always proven wrong. Yeah. So I'm open to be proven wrong about everything I've said and done at all times. Anyone should be with an open mind. I don't think I am. I think this is it. I think it's true. Personally, I think the evidence is overwhelming that this is where we are in the timeline. But the attitude just got too much. Like it's. And it's just not my vibe. It's not where I am. It's not what I'm doing. It's not my goal. And I think I've been appointed to finish this Nephilim clown thing as well, which is not finished. I want to finish my work that I started on that, you know. So I got sidetracked for a year.
Calling, you know, like genuinely believe that what the Nephilim clown thing is, because it's certain things bubble to the surface, and they really fucking strike a chord with people. And I can't even remember the show it was. Did you do High Side Chats at some point with Greg Carlwood?
It's maybe,
yeah.
I think
I did.
Yeah.
Tinfoil. It was Tinfoil Hat when I first.
Maybe it was Tinfoil Hat. I heard. But either way,
I think Greg's still emailing me, actually. I think we're trying to get another one on the higher side chats. You're right. I did.
Awesome.
Yeah, I did talk to Greg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
I remember. I remember listening to that, and it was one of those things. Now, sometimes a conspiracy theory comes along.
You messaged me straight away, Lee, after listening to it.
Yeah. And sometimes you'll listen to it and you go, "Oh yeah, right, that's really interesting," and then you'll just go about your business. And then sometimes things will come across, and then especially like on a pop culture culture like scale, you turn the TV and go, "Oh no, now I can't. Now I can't not see this fucking everywhere."
I remember what you said to me. You said, "Ollie, you're gonna have to listen to this. It's a guy that talks about the Nephilim. It's the guy that talks about clowns pretty much being Nephilim." And I'm like, "What?" He says, "Trust me, just listen to it." And I listened to it. I'm like, "Leah, I can't unhear this now." I listened to quite a few podcasts with you on. Then I'm like, "This is wild."
I think so too. Look, I'm surprised as you are. Like I don't care about clowns. Like I could not give two shits about clowns. Like I've never once given them a second thought in my entire life. I've not followed them ever. I've been to a circus once, and that was recently at Butlins. All right, so it's kind of it's not like I cared about clowns. You know what I mean? I don't care about the Joker or paraphernalia or anything like that. You know what I mean? I did not care. I couldn't have cared any less about the amazing performance of what's his name in The Dark Knight. Like Heath Ledger. Like I don't care about clowns. I'm the one that has to talk about them indefinitely. You know, like I don't know. I have to talk about
The Dark Knight because
go ahead, yeah.
Apparently, well, people were saying that he was taking that role far too seriously as the Joker, and that's one of the things that led to what happened to Heath Ledger. I mean,
maybe his journal's pretty wild. If you can look, I did an episode with Joe, funnily enough, on Heath Ledger's journal. His dad released some pages from it not that long ago, and yeah, it's when he was getting in the role, and it looks like the scribblings of a psychopath because that's what he was trying to become. Yeah. He was trying to live the role of a psychopath, you know, like a Joker type character. And it's really disturbing stuff. And he did, it's called method acting, which is basically being possessed acting. That's a fancy way of saying that. Yeah. Letting the thing wholeheartedly become you, you know. And if you're wearing the costume, the thing comes in. That's what happens. Okay, whether he knew that or not was a useful patsy, but inevitably he killed himself through drug overdose, which, you know, that's what they say anyway. And it could still be true because I don't think somebody could stare into the abyss for that long and not be affected by it. And yeah, anyway, you know, the clown thing, like I'm saying, it still surprises me to this day just how deep this goes. Like I did not know this would be my life talking about this topic. You know, I like to talk about other things, as we just explained. You know, I have many facets I like to go down, but I think the clown is, people laugh, like I said, in the Little Caesar community. They're like, why do you talk about this stupid thing? You should talk more about the Little Caesar, and that's the only thing that matters. This clown stuff is nonsense. It's kind of like, well, actually, I've had more emails telling me that they've been saved from the Nephilim clown research than the Little Caesar stuff. You know, like I actually have, again, by tangential comparison. I'm not saying the Little Caesar stuff doesn't save people as well. It probably does. And I've had emails telling me that's helped them in a big way come to their faith and understand the truth and Jesus and everything. But I'm not going to throw away something that works. I'm trying to cast wide nets here. I'm a fisher of men. You know, I'm trying to make disciples of people. I'm trying to get them to Christ. And unfortunately, where we're at right now, there's a large swath of the young population that need the clown to get interested in biblical history. That's the hook. That's the thing that's going to get them. So I'm going to use it, you know, and it's working. Amen, you know, thank God for that. And I'm not going to stop until this book is finished. And I'm going to keep making my adverts to get it out there to people. You know, I'm going to have a laugh with what I do about this and keep it lighthearted because at the end of the day, I'm trying to win souls here. I'm trying to get them to Christ. And it's kind of like they have this attitude that like what I do is not useful to the kingdom of God. And it's kind of like, look, you have to meet people where they're at. Paul changed himself with whoever he was around to meet them at their level. He talked like them, and you know, he met people where they were in their life and walk, and he was relatable to those individuals. And that's what we as Christians have to be able to do. We can't close ourselves off as some kind of isolated cult or sect that's unreachable from the general public, or isolate ourselves as our own little conclave churches where you have to jump through numerous hoops to be accepted as a member, or any of that nonsense. We need to go out there and preach the gospel to the people in a way that they can understand it, and the clown works, because that's where we're at today. That's what speaks to people on a deep, profound level.
There needs to be entry points as well. I saw, oddly enough, Ollie sent me a hilarious video at Christmas time, because Ollie has had a fractured relationship. I'd say that's a fair thing to say, isn't it, Ollie? With your dad, you've had a fractured relationship with your father over the years.
Yeah.
And he was so happy. So he messaged me, this is Christmas Day, and he was so happy because they were getting on and they were having a chat. And he said, "Oh, it's really nice. Like, he's talking to me about the podcast. He said how proud he is, how well it's going and stuff like that." Lovely moment. And the next thing is, I get a video of him stealthily recording his dad because he'd gone too far with Ollie was trying to explain the flat Earth theory to his dad, and his dad was screaming at him, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah. You got to pick your battles and your timings for stuff like that. A lesson learned, though, right? Yeah, I bet you learned your lesson. Well, I actually have a whole series called Tips for Truthers about this, about how to broach the truth topics or being a conspiracy theorist for people. And there's a lot of pitfalls that we all kind of go through and we wake up that I wish I knew now prior to burning all those bridges and making those mistakes, you know. So what I'm trying to do now is relay those messages to new truthers. It's kind of like, look, whoa. First tip is be careful who you tell. Not everyone's your friend, and not everyone is looking out for your best interest. Maybe don't tell people at work that you're into this type of thing. It's kind of, you got to choose your battles, your timings, and I've got to literally, like, there's many episodes on there now, different tips, broaching how to deal with family and friends who reject you, and be prepared to be rejected by family and friends. And this is kind of like preparation tips, advice on how to handle the consequences or how to avoid the consequences. So I relate exactly to what you're talking about there. And Ollie, I'm sure you've learned a hard lesson there, Ollie. I'm sure.
But step one's the moon landing. If you turn around to someone and say, do you think we landed on the moon? They go, yeah. You ask them what football team they support after that. It's just like, if you can't go in with like we didn't land on the moon, now we'll leave, everything else is fine. Like, what did you watch on TV?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, I tend, in my own personal life, I try not to bring this up with anybody at all. I do enough online. I reach enough people doing what I do online. I don't need to go and tell my neighbors what I do or anything like that. I don't need to tell these people, because if someone's interested, you can tell. You know who knows and who doesn't know. There's kind of like a mutual nod and a wink and like an understanding. People carry themselves differently once they're awake, and you can tell. You can kind of see it's like a sixth sense, you know. And again, you do that thing. You do that safe question. It's like, what do you think of the moon landing then over a pint? You know what I mean? And if they say, we definitely didn't go, you know, you've at least got a foot in the door there with them. You know, at least questioning something obvious. You know, but it's kind of, if they say, I think it's great that they're sending up another rover up there soon. I heard they're going to start going to the moon again. You know, if they start saying that, it's kind of like, okay, well, let's just talk about football instead. You've got to be clever, you know. And I decided a long time ago, I just don't talk about it with anybody. I don't even talk about it with my parents. I just leave it to it. They think I'm just I'm the weird third child who's, he seems to be doing quite well for himself, and I'm happy, you know, but I don't really want to know what he's doing. I don't really care. I'm not interested. It's kind of, let's just keep ourselves to ourselves. And you know what? I'm okay with that. That's just the relationship I've got. I feel like I reach enough people doing what I do here online to feel like okay with it, guilt-free in a sense, you know. And it's kind of, I know it would fall on deaf ears anyway. I got on my soapbox in the early days. I tried to tell them to turn off the propaganda machine in the living room and how they're talking bullshit to them and it's all lies and they're clearly there to try and sway you to this opinion. And they were like, just shut up, Paul. I just got to go to work tomorrow. I just want to enjoy the TV and watch this film. It's like, I've been there. And I learned a long time ago. It's kind of, just shut up. Keep your mouth shut. You know,
I had a kind of bring your parent to school day with my son once, and I thought this might be an issue because it was as soon as his teacher asked me about a band I used to play in, because I play drums. I haven't for a while. I thought, interesting. You know that. Wonder what else you know. And then there's like a class full of people, and there's a class full of other things, and it's like, oh, Dad does a podcast as well. I'm like thinking, oh, you want to shut up right now. And but the next thing is, because I just tried to brush it off, and the next words that came out of his mouth was, yeah, he talks about aliens and stuff, but he doesn't think they're aliens. Dad thinks they're demons.
Which is true.
Yeah, he's got it right. But unfortunately, it turned out that I am that Alex Jones meme.
Yeah. Well, kids lack the tact that we have to seldom figure out and learn ourselves, and it is what it is at the end of the day. I feel like this day and age, though, with the internet being what it is and social media being what it is, I feel like conspiracy theorists or people who talk about truth of topics or get into the weird things is actually a lot more common and accepted than it used to be in the olden days. Well, I think there's a lot of stigma to it now.
Ever since 90% of people had experimental gene therapy, I think they've got fuck all rocks to stand on anymore. It's all of a sudden they're dragged down to our level.
Mm-hmm. You can't help but be one now, can you? It's like, welcome, finally you've caught up. It's that type of feeling, isn't it? But I don't know. I think you have to have tact with truth of topics. And again, my channel is kind of dedicated to doing that as well. I have my own podcast, The Truth of Therapy Sessions, for that reason, and I'm almost on episode 100. It's coming around the corner, 2 weeks. And again, I try and get other guests on, podcasters on, to tell their stories, how they woke up, the issues they had, and the pitfalls and the relationships that broke or were grown, and they kind of we get into all the weird stuff they talk about and what they're known for and that type of thing as well. But I think it's nice hearing those stories. It helps other people not feel so alone who are kind of in this community. And it's a broad, wide community, and we don't always agree with each other on a lot of things. But I think what we all agree on is that we've been lied to. Yeah. And we're trying to figure out just how deep that goes.
That should be enough as well. That really
should be enough. Yeah.
But
there's a lot of dividing lines, though, based on, like I said, religion, belief, and attitudes and cultures. And I'm one of those people that's like, look, I'll talk to anybody who wants to listen to me. I don't care what your belief or your religion is. And like I said, the Little Season community, I had a lot of them saying, you shouldn't be talking to that person because they're not a Christian. And it's kind of like, oh, shut up. Shut up. Yeah. Who are you? Start your own podcast and go and do that. That's all I can say.
The least,
go ahead.
The least Jesus thing to do. Do you know what I mean? To not accept everybody for what they are.
Well, exactly. Look, I mean, I don't have to agree with the sinful life if they're doing something terrible, but I don't hate them as an individual. Think they're not worthy of my time or presence as a result of that. I've done some pretty shady, horrible things in the past too before I was born again. It's kind of so what? We're all in the shit together. Let's just talk about it while we're here, and let's do our best to get each other lifted up and elevated and out of it. Let's pull each other out of it. And that's always kind of been my attitude, and I'm hoping my channel's mission has always been to bring us all together, whatever faction or belief you have or wherever you stand. If my opening is, I want you to get together, that's my little sound bit, from I think Marlena Shaw did a song or something something about the ghetto, I can't remember, but I had a sample from an acid jazz song by Saint Germain I used in my opening credit soundbite. And it is, I want you to get together for a reason. It's kind of, look, we have one enemy here. We're not each other's enemy. We're all being played. It's kind of while we're all squabbling over my truth versus your truth, our liberties have been taken away on a daily basis. We're being poisoned, we're being killed, we're being indoctrinated, and we're being played massively and moved like pawns on a chessboard or like actors on a play to a script we didn't write. And we need to get together and sort it out before we all end up dying a horrible death. And it's kind of, let's work together, And it turns out saying that is like, wait a minute, you want me to talk to non-Christians? They don't get it. They don't see it still. It's that overzealous attitude that I got from some commenters, which is another one of the reasons I left that community in a way, or at least took a back seat in the community rather than a forefront thing.
It's a more comfortable place to be, isn't it? Like we as a podcast try to exist as like just a little satellite where people can drop in, drop out, and they not try to get too involved in other people's businesses, because for me it was no more prevalent. Did you know the Ashton Forbes stuff that happened with he had the the video of the plane that got abducted
MH370.
MH370 got
Yeah.
up by the orbs. So he's been on our show quite a few times, and when you see like the UFO, like the UFO sect attack him because they don't like his UFO video or his UFO theory, it makes no sense. Like they tried to destroy that guy, tried to get him fired from his job and everything because he was saying something about their topic that they didn't like for some reason.
That's
Fucking
exactly what
insane.
it's like everywhere. Every faction has their own view of that. You try and tell a Gnostic what Gnosticism is, and they'll say that's not real Gnosticism, and they'll have a go at you. You know, it's kind of you can't win with many of these groups because they've isolated themselves within their own little echo chambers, and that's what happened to the little season community. It became one giant echo chamber, and it's kind of like, look, I respect the work. I like the community. I love them, you know. But it's kind of like I'm not into that. And look, like I said, I tried to explain earlier. I made a lot of money, you know, making little season videos.
Yeah.
So I know why a lot of people keep doing what they're doing in that community. I know behind the scenes what's really happening. The amount of views I was pulling in was like 150,000 a month, if not more, just on little season videos alone, and that adds up, you know. And I've took a huge hit in monetary value by taking a step back and just shutting up about that topic because I'm not in it for the money. And again, it's kind of like, what more can I say? I'm like a broken record. I'm saying the same thing over and over again now in every other podcast and every other video.
Affirming people's beliefs, and that's
yeah. It's like, what for? To placate and affirm the beliefs of these people and earn more money. It's like, I'm sure Jesus didn't want this either, is what I was thinking in the back of my mind. I felt guilty about it, so I've stopped, and I don't want to go back to that. I want to keep finishing my own work that I started, that I want to finish and get out there. And like I said, I want to stay humble, I want to stay grounded in reality, and I want to connect with the wider community and make sure I'm still there and not swept up and just lost in that one thing. And I don't want my channel to just be the Little Season channel. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what I am. That's not who I am, and that's never what I wanted to be. And I know a lot of other channels and a lot of my subscribers are that, and they want me to be that. Like, and they're still asking me to do those type of things, and I keep giving hints in little podcasts like this why I'm not doing it anymore. And I'm hoping it's a good enough explanation for people, but it's kind of people are asking me. It's kind of like, oh yeah, people ask me like comments. It's like, why don't you come back anymore? This is the only thing you should be talking about. Blah blah blah. And now I've just taken to responding back. People like you are the reason I've left. It's that simple. Like, it's too much. You've gone too far. You've lost yourself to the ideology, to the idea. You've become a member of a hive mind, which is the problem. Like, yes, take it on board, integrate the information, move on. Yes. That's what every truther should do at all times with everything, you know. Have your foundation. My foundation is Jesus Christ is the truth, the way, and the life. Right? Great. Have a foundation. Have a solid rock to build the truth upon. But you don't become obsessive about just one thing. Don't do it. It's never works out. And I don't know where that movement's going now. It's a runaway freight train, and I don't know who's leading that thing anymore, or who the conductor is. You know, I don't know where it's going. It's going to smash into the side of a volcano pretty soon. I'm pretty sure, because the people who wanted it and the people who have got it, yeah, I don't see a good future for that movement. I think something bad's about to happen, and I'm washing my hands of that. You know,
Paul,
that's all I can say.
Before we slay this flamboyant giant, I want to ask you something. So there is a date that's going around in all of conspiracy, and it goes in with an asteroid, a UFO, and also an AI takeover. And I keep hearing this date within different communities coming up of 2027. I don't know if you've heard anything about this, or you have any thoughts on that. But I keep hitting this date. You must have heard the Abbey Low asteroid, and there's also Jeremy Corbell's talked about the fake alien invasion, and then you had the Google ex-Google guy that went on the British podcast. Stephen, I forgot his name.
Oh, the Diary of a CEO.
Diary is Stephen Bartlett, and he said that 2027 is when the AI really kicks in. So I want to know your thoughts on 2027.
Yeah, well, but I'm not a date setter. I very much specifically try and make that clear in one of my tips as well. Setting dates is a bad idea because I've been watching it for years. There's always been a date, and it's always coming past, and nothing ever happened. Always, and everyone's like, "What's going to happen at some time?" You know. So this has got to be the one. This has got to be the one, you know. And so I'm dubious about date setters immediately. And like I said, there's a lot of money to be made in playing that game and being those people who say that type of thing because it gets the views because it's playing off fear, you know. So be careful, be dubious of any of that. Now, in terms of the UFO thing, I believe there's Atlas 31. Is that what's in our solar system?
AI Atlas.
Yeah, on its way, you know, and it's kind of like scientists are coming out saying it must be an alien like spacecraft. It's going to land behind the sun and then do a sneak attack on Earth at some point. Like it's like you got all that from a dot.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know where you're getting your information from, but yeah, whatever. So they're playing into that narrative, this long-running narrative of aliens. Okay, and this has been like hundreds of years in the works since War of the Worlds, Orson Welles' announcement over the radio where people started shooting their own grain towers down because they thought they were tripods invading them, you know, because of one radio broadcast where they didn't say it was fake. Like it's kind of... People have been prepped and primed with propaganda and movies to believe aliens are going to rock up at any moment, and obviously that comes hand in hand with heliocentrism, a godless society, evolutionary theory. All of that kind of ties in nicely with that aliens came here, perhaps seeded the planet, or there's an advanced evolved species out there that'll inevitably come into contact with us, and they're not going to just drop billions upon billions of dollars and decades upon decades and centuries of propaganda and work and effort now because we figured it out. They're going to go full steam ahead with this thing they've been investing into heavily, and they're going to pull the fake alien invasion. Absolutely, you know, Werner von Braun made it clear to his assistant the fake alien invasion is the final card to put space-based weapons into our atmosphere, which will then give us full control. You know, it's all a lie. That guy you mentioned earlier, what's his name again? He also talked about the fake alien invasion recently, didn't he? What was his name?
Jeremy Corbell?
Was he sat on a stool in like a weird empty space?
Yeah,
and he was
Jeremy
talking about
Corbell.
it? Yeah. I remember seeing that as well. But that was like a rehash of really old ideas I'd heard like a decade prior. You know, I don't know who he is or why he's just saying the same thing that was already said by Werner von Braun's assistant, but you know, like it was something new. But yeah, we've known about this for ages in the conspiracy world. It's definitely coming. And I also understand that 2025 is actually a big deal to the occult, which we're in now. And they believe this is the reemergence of the world teacher in the Theosophical Society. So the Theosophical Society from the late 1800s is a think tank that has evolved into something called the Lucis Trust now that works with even the UN, I think they work with, in the EU. And they started a newspaper called Lucifer the Light Bearer. Helena Blavatsky headed up this thoughts group, and Alice Bailey kind of took over and wrote many books afterwards about the emergence in 2025 of the consciousness of humanity to the next dimension, into the fifth dimension, but it'll come and be heralded by the arrival of the world teacher that's going to aid mankind and direct them on this new evolutionary path of consciousness. Very new age woo-woo sounding bullshit, you know, but with more of a Gnostic occult magic twist from the early Victorian, late Victorian period. You know what I mean? It's got that weird mysticism vibe to it, you know. So yeah, that they are still going strong, and they believed this is the year, and they predicted this years ago. Years and years ago.
Hold some weight?
Well, I think the Maitreya, as they call it, you know, this people have been looking for a man to appear, like Jesus, kind of thing. I've heard, and I think this is a great idea. It's AI.
Yeah,
that's emerged.
Everything you were just saying, like, it screams AI to me. AI,
and I believe they're pushing for superintelligence now, aren't they? AGI or something like that. I can't remember what they call it. And it seems like everywhere you see the ChatGPT 5 has just dropped, you know, but even then that's like fifth on the list out of others that are way ahead of it now, and it's becoming VEO 3 was dropped as super high realistic graphics that's almost indistinguishable from reality. Virtual reality augmented goggles now that can take a picture and turn it into a full landscape that you can explore is coming out, you know, and it's kind of everything seems to be merging and amalgamating into this amazing image of a future where AI is going to be in full control of us, and it's going to be our savior in a way. It's going to make everything beautiful and perfect and take away all our need to work anymore. It's going to super advance our technology and our design processes to the point where we'll be on the moon in 2 years' time again, living on space stations with super high paying jobs and this type of stuff. It's been this promised savior of mankind that's going to elevate us out of the what by comparison is the Stone Age today, for what's to come next. That's the idea, that's the pitch, that's the sell. You look at the reality of the situation, it's actually slow, it's crap, and it's weird, and it's perverted, and it's dodgy as hell, AI. It actually makes flaws all the time. And I've researched an article that a lot of businesses are actually dropping AI from the business now because they gave administration tasks to it, and it fails like 95% of the time. Like, it doesn't complete the tasks, or it makes a big mistake that has knock-on effects every time. Yeah. It's like that success rate is way too low to trust our entire business to it. So they have to rehire the people they fired. So
people want it to be more than it is, like more than it is before it is. The way I look at AI right now is it's like it almost feels like the natural evolution of the search engine. It's like an amazing search engine. Basically. That being said, though, I did have a weird interaction with AI the other day, because we use AI for like making hashtags and stuff like that, for to tag episodes and like what you call it, transcripts, and making descriptions of transcripts. Anything that means that when I edit the audio of this podcast tomorrow, everything else around doing the podcast can be done in seconds rather than hours, so I can get it done and get to work. However, that we switched over from using Grok to ChatGPT as our AI. So it's not. I haven't been using it for a long time, and because it's got the voice feature, I thought the other day I'll just freak my son out for a little bit, because obviously he's never heard like the laptop talk to him. So I told it. I told ChatGPT to say hello to my son, and without giving too much detail about my son away, it said hello to him with his name. He's not only did it know that he trains in martial arts, it knew the discipline he trains, and then it also knew that he just entered his first competition earlier this year and came second.
That's weird. Was
fucking strange.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, oh, hi.
You just told it to say hi.
Yeah, I said it to say hi. I said, oh, hi, his name. I hear you're crushing it at such and such a thing, and you did really well by getting a silver medal in such and such competition. Yeah. It was really like I was there thinking, hang on a second, you were supposed to freak him out, not me.
Well, we are fully monitored now. There's no doubt about it. We gave up all of our data and information when we hit consent on all those cookies a long time ago, And if people want to fight and argue that we can't give AI anything or use AI, it's kind of like they've already got everything. They've got everything already.
Genie's out of the bottle.
It's too late for that. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like I said, we can use it as an asset rather than an enemy if you want to. But I think there is something that could be said. It's a popular thought that there's a demonic element to all of this, and we are in a way creating a new channel for the spirit realm to get to our world, but give it a voice, shall we say? So I think there is a danger for that. I think that is I think the spiritual and the physical are connected, and when you create something in the physical world, it has a connection to the spiritual world, and we've basically created a super advanced Ouija board where it can communicate with us now, and we've given it a voice in a way.
We've used just that analogy on this show before.
It's exactly that. That's what they were trying to get then. This is it. This is the fruition of that idea, This is exactly what it is. It's maybe it's not always a demon talking to you. It could just be technology, but it has the potential for it to be. It can be used, And we have to be wary of that kind of thing because, again, the spirit realm's real and it's no joke, and we're in the middle of a spiritual war. So I think we should be very careful. But insofar as that, but it also is just a tool. We can use it, in many, many ways and variations. I'm against AI art myself personally. I think it's unearned talent. I think it's kind of like beware of unearned wisdom is a popular phrase, in like people who take psychedelics. I think it's the same thing for artists claiming to be artists who use AI to make everything. And it's kind of, you're not an artist. Don't call yourself that. You haven't earned that title in a way.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's kind of, that's what we're getting to now. And I have my own gripes. I've kind of and beef with that concept and idea. But in terms of like what I was saying earlier about 2025, if the world teacher has emerged now and we're about to hit this super intelligence stage, then 2 years after that, in 2027, we could be reaching an apex point of the singularity, which is Ray Kurzweil's wet dream, basically, where it's the idea that technology will reach a point where it gains consciousness, and then we as humans can merge with it. Our consciousness can become one with machines, which then advances into a superhuman state of evolutionary processes, and then we can conquer death. We'll never die, we'll live forever, basically. So that singularity promise could be reached in 2027, along with the arrival of aliens here to help us, aid us in our evolutionary process, because they seeded us millions of years ago, and they're here to help finish the final stage. Now that you've finally reached, the level of super intelligence, it's kind of now we can finally work with you and help you ease you to the next level. And it's kind of all that narrative fits perfectly with the New Age agenda, the New Age spiritualism, the Theosophical Society's long-term agenda as well, with occultism, with Luciferianism. You will be as gods, you'll be like gods. It's all perfect, and it fits very comfortably in the Little Season narrative as well, like very snugly and comfortably there. So I think you're right with the 2027 thing. I think the next few years are going to be weird. I've been saying this for a while. I said, like, look, the next decade, it's going to be weird. Like, we're not even, like, you can make predictions, like I'm trying here. I bet it's going to be way off. I bet it's going to be something so far out of left field, nobody could have seen it coming with the way it's going. Like,
were you aware of, there was, I can't remember the guys that put it together now. There was, I think the website's called AI 2030. And there was a group of people at War Games. I think the way they've done it's great, because if you read, or if you can either read or listen to it on the website, and it's all cited next to it with all the how they've come to the conclusions they've come to, and at the end it forks off into two separate endings, one where we pump the brakes on AI, and one where we just like stick the foot down and go like straight forward. And there was a lot of the stuff around AI that I missed a simple thing with it, because I was there thinking, like, I was putting human limitations on things, as in, like, for robots, for instance, we haven't got the battery capacity for them. We could probably do it mechanically, but we could power one of these things for like 15 fucking minutes before we need to recharge it and that sort of stuff. They explained in this that when we hit this when we hit the super intelligence point, we make, I think they rounded it up to like a decade's progress in a year, because all of the problems we have, we can sick like 1,000 super intelligent geniuses on a problem that will work 24 hours a day until the problem's complete. And I hadn't thought about the idea. I think lots of people, when they think of AI, we've got this human cage that we put around it, whereas when you say AI, you think of a singular thing, but it's not a singular thing. It's an infinite number of however intelligent that singular thing is. And it's that to me is fucking terrifying.
They use the same principle today in robotics, as you mentioned, to machine learn things. So you get a machine like an arm, a mechanical arm, for example. And what they'll do, they'll plug it into this particular software. I can't remember the name of it now. It's named after a biblical figure. I can't remember which it is. I think it's like the son of Moses or something. Anyway, whatever. They named it after this guy anyway. But what they do is they take this arm, and then they get the model of the arm, and they split it into 1,000 variations of itself in a real 3D graphic space. So you'll see this graphic space, and it's literally just right next to each other in square patterns going off into infinity, 1,000 versions of itself. And what they do, they give it problems, okay? And they make it learn how to deal with 1,000 variations of things happening. So it practices 1,000 times at once every second, one problem. Do you get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
when you actually watch it,
Yeah.
and they put it through this program, they use it with I think they've teamed up with like Nvidia or something like that to make it happen. You know, it's like and you can watch it like, and they have this real robotic arm in real life, which you can make it you can control it in the game, and it will move in real life how you're controlling it. You know, but then like I said, you can make it train through AI models, make 1,000 versions of yourself in here, and just sit there while your virtual self practices something 1,000 times. Do you know what I mean? In a second. And then all that at once gets put back into it. And now it knows how to handle a screw and every variation of that screw going wrong. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. But it learned what would take hours or years to do individually one process at a time. It just learned in seconds because it splits itself into 1,000 versions of itself. And that's what they do. And there's examples of it like a really bumpy terrain, and you've got like this robot. Like literally like like the robots we have, like let's say one of the Elon Musk's robots. It's like a graphic version of itself in a video game on this bumpy terrain going off into infinity. But there's just thousands of them running around, bumping into each other and like avoiding each other and trying to get up these things.
Just a big physics simulation.
Yeah, massive simulation. Isaac Sim, that's what it's called. It's called Isaac Sim. Thanks for reminding me. And yeah, you can watch them. There's loads of videos of it, and that's how they're training robots to do stuff. Like a robot doesn't learn to walk up steps by making the robot there in front of you physically learn to walk up steps. You put it in the sim and make it walk up 1,000 sets of stairs on different elevations with different widths and everything all at once within an hour's period. You know what I mean? And then put that data back into the machine. Now he knows how to deal with any stair that you give him. He's practiced. He's had literally a year's worth of practice in 5 minutes on a set of stairs. Do you get what I mean? That's how it works. That's how they're using these models to make them learn. And yeah, that's exactly how they're going to solve all the problems of everything. Like that's how it's working now. Like AI with these technologies, like I said, simulations. You can make robots solve those issues you were talking about very quickly. You know, and that's the world we're in now. It's exponential. It's only going to get faster, and they're going to apply this to medical fields, to banking fields, and eventually it's going to be a technocracy. AI is going to be our ruler. It's going to be our leader. It's going to be the thing that we defer all decisions to, and it's going to be the guiding force that brings humanity into the new age, you know, of enlightenment. That's basically how it is going to be. And I don't know if you've ever read the book I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Have you heard of that one?
No.
Okay, well, it was written in the 80s, I think, or maybe the 60s. I can't remember. And it was about a world where humanity's been wiped out by a super intelligent AI. Okay. And what he does is he can basically have mastery of all physical form now, all matter. He can make anything exist instantaneously whenever he wants. He can create an entire world and people instantly. And he's kept 4 people alive for eternity because he can do that. He can make new bodies for them. He can transform into anything he wants to transform it into and keep their consciousness in it. And what he does is he tortures them for eternity by making them relive their worst nightmares. For fun. Because he's bored. Like basically, and he hates mankind. He hates humanity. He thinks they're disgusting and pathetic and worthless. And he thinks these people deserve it to be punished for eternity. And it's kind of like the thing is this: one of the characters gets turned into this amorphous blob with no mouth, and and he's in agony for eternity, but can't scream. And it's kind of because people gave everything to the AI, and the AI turned on us basically. And again, it sounds like prophecy now. Reading that book, you know what I mean? But when it was written, it was just cool science fiction, Yeah. But now we're seeing the mastery AI is having over physical reality, and everything forms and it's in its infancy, but we know how rapid it's developing and how it can develop so rapidly through Isaac Sim as an example. Yeah. What's around the corners? We're not talking like years from now. We're talking months from now.
No,
this is how fast it's going, and then before you know it, it'll be hours from now. Eventually, it's getting silly. It's getting silly. I'm hoping the brakes get hit. Personally, I'm hoping for the brake option.
I'm on board with simulation at the minute because I just keep looking at this clown nose on this painting and know that I have to sleep in that bed below it.
Just cover it up with something. Put a cloth over it. You'll be fine.
Yeah. I'm taking that. I'm going to do a poltergeist, but it's not the TV, it's the picture that's been outside the room.
It is, yeah. Well, maybe it is a simulation. My wife thinks we're in a simulation. That's her go-to. Maybe she's right. But either way, I would call it God. I would call it God's creation. But at the same time, it is what it is.
I always call simulation theory is that it's just creationism for atheists. Sort
It
of.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
That just sounds like creationism with extra steps. Like, yeah, I like
But
that. I like that a lot.
we've nearly gone we've gone over 2 hours now, so we should wrap shop on this now. I hope you'll
Okay.
come back again and speak to us in the future, mate. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, no problem. This is what I do. Like I said,
Awesome.
just send me an email. We'll sort it out. Maybe you want to come on my channel. Do you want to come in the Truth of Therapy sessions? Do you want to have
Absolutely, anytime.
a therapy
Anytime.
session sometime?
Yeah.
I'll hold you to that. I'll send you an email. We'll get a time booked on the calendar. I do every Sunday at 9 p.m. So
No, yeah,
come join me if you can.
Yeah, that'd be
Good
great.
stuff.
Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you and what you've got coming up and stuff like that?
Sure. So I'm on YouTube, Understanding Conspiracy. You know what the logo looks like now, so you can't miss it. I'm on every podcast format you can get. Everything I do goes in audio format as well, so you can check that out. I have my own podcast, The Truth of Therapy Sessions, which again is just under Understanding Conspiracy wherever you look. I do a live Q&A session every Wednesday as well, which is just a bit of fun. I'm going to go do one now after our show here for an hour, just to have a bit of fun with the community and have a bit of a back and forth. I have another channel called Understanding Creativity, which is a new side project of mine. We just hit 4,000 subscribers yesterday. And we do occult breakdowns of artists throughout history and lectures on there, and it's good fun. So if you like a bit of art and conspiracy around that realm, go check that out. We just did Picasso. It was a learning experience. I learned a lot about that. I did not know about that guy and what he did behind the scenes. I'm not going to lie, but we have a wonderful guests on there. I've got actors, musicians, and all sorts of people in the industry coming on to talk with me about their experiences, so that's good stuff. So go check that out if you haven't already, Understanding Creativity, or find me on YouTube at Understanding Conspiracy. And if you want the book, The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, it's all on Amazon. Just type it in. You cannot miss it. I mean, there it is. You can't miss that thing. Like, it is what it is.
It's a really good cover. It's a really good eye-catching cover.
Thanks. Again, my wife helped me with it a lot. She's honestly, what I had, the colour schemes was terrible, and she was right to tell me so. But it worked out quite well, so I'm quite happy with it. But the next one will have a slightly different spin on what you're seeing for the next volume. But again, go to Amazon for all the book-related stuff, audiobook as well.
Awesome. For our stuff, if everyone goes and checks the links out for it, it's in the description. Go vote for us on the British Podcast Awards. A load of you've been doing that. That's awesome. And other than that, we'll see you. We'll see them next week, aren't they? With the schedule we've got at the minute, aren't we?
Next week,
Next
mate.
week?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be next
I'm
week.
working away.
Yeah. Well, if you hang around for a little bit, we'll just play it out, and I'll say to Archie in a second, buddy.
Sure thing.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Bob.